So I'd like to ask Roshi Joan to offer a few words to start us off.
No, thank you so much. And welcome, everyone. We're very grateful that you're here virtually and physically. And I'm looking forward to coming down to the River House to say hi to all the friends who have sat Rohatsu for many years. And then I'll retire up to my little corner here. Before Roshi Enkyo opens Rohatsu with her talk, I just want to say that a few days ago, I received an email from Linda Hess, Kaz's wife, that Kaz had experienced a medical issue, and he's okay, but he really needs to rest. He has incredible resilience and has, shown up in the midst of all kinds of conditions. But in conferring with Linda and also in talking with Kaz, it just is clear that our 88-year-old, wonderful, venerable, dear friend who has sat Rohatsu with us for decades and who was the one who actually suggested the theme for this Rohatsu, it is better for him to just be in deep quiet and so on. And he's fine. He's going to be okay. It's just, yeah. He's resilient and he'll be okay. So don't worry, please. But we'll just send him a lot of metta, a lot of healing thoughts. And also, please dedicate yourself wholeheartedly to practice. So Roshi Enkyo.
Thank you, Joan. Roshi. I would like to dedicate this Rohatsu to Kaz Sensei. He is the premier translator of Dogen, the 13th century Japanese philosopher poet. And Kaz did choose the study text for this period, this Rohatsu period. And it's a wonderful evocation of the natural world. And this is so important for us these days to become even more intimate with the world about us, the natural world about us, the mountains and rivers. It is, of course, also about our spiritual lives, because Dogen is always talking about our spiritual lives. So it is about our place in the natural world, how we are one with the mountains and one with the rivers. And it's interesting, it's the only piece of Dogen's that he calls a sutra. Mountains and Rivers Sutra was the name that he put to it. Really, really kind of sacralizing or sharing with us the vitality of the natural world and how the mountains and rivers directly affect our spiritual lives. So I encourage you all to do study this. The text is in the resources page. And if you haven't downloaded it yet, please do tonight. Read it before you go to bed and read it every day during this session. I think it will delight you. And plus, we'll be talking about it all the time. So it might be helpful if you did take a look at it. It's a wonderful piece. But what I really want to concentrate tonight on is your practice of meditation, of Zazen. And particularly, I'm aiming these remarks to those of you who are participating in Rohatsu, whether you're doing that in person or on Zoom. How do we practice a seated mind? How can we experience, we're taking this time in our lives to turn and focus on our practice? How can we do that skillfully? It's as if we've all gathered together to stop and see, to stop our habitual busyness and see what is possible when we drop into that quieter, deep space within ourselves. We can return to ourselves, to our original integrity, our own wholeness. And somehow, in some bizarre way, for many of us, we can do that better when we are with others. Return to ourselves when we are with others. We join together, making our own determination and practice stronger and more resilient. Somehow, we do that better with the fellowship of others, without using words. Somehow, the being with allows us to enter into ourselves. And for many of us, we are in fact physically separated and joined only by Zoom. Joined also by our intention to practice and our determination to fully enter into this Rohatsu Sesshin, the Sesshin that celebrates the original enlightenment of Shakyamuni Buddha. How do we do this? We'll study the ways of mountains and rivers. We'll study the ways mountain and rivers are intimate. We can sit still and strong like a mountain and be soft and flexible like a flowing stream. How do we do that in our zazen, in our seated minds? So I'm going to be very specific here and make some points. Prepare your mind as you prepare yourself for your zazen sitting. Gently breathe in and breathe out. And then select your props. Is it a cushion? Is it two cushions? Is it a chair? A zafu? A zabuton? Select your props and place them in the way that will help you to sit, will support you. They are your supports. And before you sit down, offer a standing bow to those props. This may be a little corner, like in my house, it's a little corner in the room where I have my zafu and zabuton, and every morning I bow to my zafu and zabuton and appreciate that I have time and place to practice. So too, those of you participating in Rohatsu at a distance on Zoom, set yourself up so that you can bow to your practice of Rohatsu Sesshin. And of course, those of you at the Zen Center in the Zendo, you know that is part of our practice always, is to bow to our cushions and to bow to the altar. Say, yes, thank you for this opportunity. And after we bow, we sit down. And the minute we sit down, it's good to recall our intention. Intention to sit still. My intention to free my mind. For this particular zazen period, I will work very hard to free my mind. Thank goodness it is marked by bells to begin and bells to end. And perhaps we know from previous retreats that when we allow ourselves to actually just sit, to not be cogitating, not analyzing or complaining, somewhere in our minds we find a strength, a quiet wisdom that somehow arises from within that quiet state that we allow ourselves to be in. And of course, if we're fretting about the quality of our meditation, we're fretting, we're not meditating. So each time we notice that, come back to our breath. Each time we notice the complaint, come back to the breath. So it may seem easier to do this in a group rather than doing it online, but not really, if you think about it. The determination to stay in your zazen is situated only within you. Only within you will that determination stay solid. Thus, for all of us, we need to renew our ability to sit moment to moment to moment. As we begin to sit, we modulate our breathing. We become present to what's been there all day, our in-breath. Paying attention to the flow of the breath as we breathe in and as we breathe out. Allow that breath to hold you. Allow that breath to soothe your body and your mind. Once we've settled into sitting on our cushion or chair or bench, we have several options about the concentration. If it's difficult to concentrate, if we feel agitated, then traditionally we suggest you count your breath. Count 1 on the out breath and 2 on the next out breath, and continue to 10. Should you get lost between the first out breath and the second out breath, there's a solution. You can count both the in breath and the out breath. That essentially punctuates each breath and allows you to come back, to come back, to come back. It's a wonderful training. And once you feel that you are quiet in your mind and you no longer need the counting, you can settle back into the great practice of Chicantasa. Chicantasa means just sitting. It's a free awareness practice. A time to simply sit, moment to moment. Not going down any thought stream, but fully awake to just this. We do this practice over and over throughout our lives. Sometimes in the midst of practice, we may drop a phrase, maybe from Dogen, maybe from a koan, maybe from a beloved poem, and drop that phrase just into the well of our practice. Without thinking, without criticizing or organizing, but simply allowing it to be within the well of our practice. I think of the line, to study the way is to study the self. And for many years in my early practice, when I'd start to waver, I would drop that simple line, to study the way is to study the self, into my practice. And you know, as you sit and sit and sit, suddenly you hear a bell ring. Ding, ding, signaling the end of that zazen period. In some temples, you know, in places that people kind of get into this kind of competitive thing where they don't get up between periods of sitting. They're so solid sitters. But I have found that it's a good thing to stand up at the end when the bell rings, to stand up with everyone in the, be a part of the community, and to stand up slowly and carefully, because some of your part of your body may be asleep, and offer a seated bow as you slowly unwind your legs and stand and wait for the bell or the clacking wood to signal very slow walking meditation. Now, if those of you who are working from home, it is a good idea before you begin your zazen period is to organize your space so that you can move in a way that is pleasant and easy to do. It may be just a few steps around your computer, around and around. And after about 10 minutes, the bells will lead you back to resume your precious zazen. I'm hoping these words will help you to begin to practice seated Zen. It is finally the heart of the practice. Roshi Joan and I will be talking about the text. We'll be talking about the power of Dogen's words, the skillfulness of Kaz Sensei's translations, and the meaning for each of us these days. What is it to be a mountain, to be a river? What is it to be a part of this world that we live in? So I always, when I talk about meditation practice, I always want to end it with something like bon voyage, because it's such a marvelous thing. It's a wonderful thing. And those of you who are able to practice this week, whether you're in a room at the Upaya Zen Center or scattered throughout the world, you will benefit greatly if you practice. I encourage you.
Thank you so much, Roshi. Roshi Enkyo and Kaz and I have sat Rohatsu for many, many years. And also the truth of impermanence prevails. And now it's just the two old ladies with you. Yeah. But that feeling of closeness, of intimacy that Kaz and Roshi Enkyo and I have experienced when we were able to be here at Upaya, sitting up in my little suite of rooms, my two little rooms, talking back and forth about what we would do each day. And I, even though Kaz isn't able to access us online right now, I feel his presence permeating this time. So I think just the word Rohatsu is interesting. It's the 8th day of the 12th month of the year, the lunar calendar. And it is known traditionally as a dark time, but also it is the time in our lineage that is associated with the awakening of the Buddha. And we sit in that spirit in a certain way as a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, or as just Jack and Jill. But with this kind of heart of determination. It takes virya to do this. It's so against the stream of most of our lives. We're in this so often state of multiple distraction, and to repattern our nervous system and to allow ourselves to really settle down and commit. One of the hardest things for people to do is to keep their promises. So many people say they're going to do this, but they end up not doing that at all. And so part of this practice, whether you're in the Zendo or like Roshi Enkyo and I up in our little perches, or you in your homes or wherever you are, there's a sense of deep commitment. And also that commitment is to stay the course. It's really hard to do that, to be thorough, to be deeply present, to bring this kind of wholeheartedness to what we're doing, even though everything, including, our little tear-it apart ego, is pulling us in another direction. And it's also a practice of letting go, of moving out of our habits, our mental habits, and even our physical habits. So, putting aside the iPhone, not feeling like it, you have to, although so many of us are online to actually, look at, did I get a message or an email? But to see if you can drop down and drop in. And Dogen's kind of complement in our lineage is Zen Master Keizan, who characterized this process of practice that we engage in as a deep path of discovery. And also in this regard, I often think of words from Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "Our own lives are the instrument with which we experiment with truth." Our own lives are the instrument with which we experiment with truth. So this practice is about that. What does it mean to be rooted and also free as a cloud? And I often remind people that the word truth and dharma come from the same root, and also tree from the same root. that which is deeply established and yet also boundless, free. I often think about our old friend, Gary Snyder, the poet, old Zen person, craggy face like the peaks, gravelly voiced, ornery and true. And he asked one day, what is Zen? And he said, you know, in this kind of rhetorical question, Zen is a way of using your mind, living your life, and doing it with other people. So what Roshi Enkyo was suggesting is that there is a kind of power or magnetism or an experience of entrainment that happens when we as a community, online and on-site, come together with this kind of commitment. And we're, in a way, enacting the life of a Buddha, what it is to sit still and to flow, what it is to awaken in the darkness. And we're reaching through not only the life of the Buddha, but the life of all of the ancestors as we endeavor to cultivate a quality of unconstructed presence and ease. And I remember so many Rohatsus, Roshi Enkyo, when Kaz would say things that I'd be like, oh my God. He'd say, oh, you know, just be at ease in all this, you know, just relax. And there is this kind of internal sense of ease that comes once we unwrap our fingers around the grip of our so-called important endeavors. But also being in Sesshin, for many of us, even those of us who have done so many over the years, it feels like we're stepping off a 100-foot pole. And we're in a kind of free fall. So enjoy your flight or your fall. And as Roshi Enkyo said, our motivation, our bodhisattva vows, these are the bonds that connect us to our kokoro, to the heart, to this releasing of aggression, and to bring us into the sensibility of, you know, we are here, endeavoring to allow the grip of the ego to loosen so that we can truly be in service to others, truly be of benefit to others, show up, keep our promises, and really from a foundation of kind of a balance between deep thoroughness and also love. And our bonds are also karmic and social. You who've come together, we who have come together, it's a moment, a world of great complexity where we have committed to use this time in a very powerful and unusual way, to just sit, to just be. And also the bonds of suffering join us. I know recently, just a few nights ago, I joined another community who was doing beautiful Buddhist community, doing a kind of healing service and ceremony for one of its members, and also extending that sensibility to others who were struggling. It was just so powerful to contemplate my friend who is so ill and has done just such beautiful offerings over many years. She's just been a kind of treasure, a Buddhist treasure, and now she's really in it, really sick. And remembering, the bonds of suffering that also join us, not just the bonds associated with our vows. So this is intimacy. This is the source of our awakening, these bonds, recognizing them, respecting them, affirming them, knowing this is what gives our character, our heart, great depth. So we ask you to carry the spirit of Zazen, of dhyana, which is the Sanskrit for Zen, of deep non-alienation, the experience of absorption into all of your life. And we ask you to the extent that you can, make your life genuine through the medium of practice. This is the taste of Zen, this kind of genuineness, this lack of pretentiousness, the absence of stinkiness, the non-complexity. I mean, we have enough complexity. And see if you can develop this quality of showing up where there is an absence of resistance. I remember the first sessions I sat many, many decades ago, where actually there was no meditation instruction. That was so interesting when you're just kind of thrown into this intensity. The only thing that told you what to do were clacks and bings and bongs. And it was like, and you're like, oh my gosh, the deer in the headlight. See if you can just be in this kind of spirit of connecting to, there's nothing to resist, just show up. And know that you can't realize the nature of your mind through ego effort. So as Kaz would advise us, please relax. And Roshi Enkyo gave some wonderful instructions about Zazen in your own little corner in your home. I want to just elaborate a little bit on this, whether you're here for Sesshin or you're just here for our talk this evening. I really encourage you to commit to a schedule at the outset that works with your home life. Kind of randomly dropping in and out is really coming from preferential mind. But if you look at the schedule that we are offering, and maybe at home it's not possible for you to show up for every sitting period, or maybe the only thing that works is coming just to the talks. But if you can put aside preferential mind and to actually create a schedule that you will show up for, even if 1,000 things are attracting you and distracting you. So just try that in relation to those of us who are in the Cloud Zendo. And we here, Upaya will be enjoying noble silence. So as people walk on our beautiful land, Their hands will be in shashu, their eyes will be down. There's a kind of containment that we practice so that we're not pulled out of just this as it is, so to speak. But I encourage those who are at home to commit to keeping full silence for some portion of the day. Really give yourself that. And that means, getting your eyeballs off your computer in terms of the sort of busyness of feeling you have to answer your emails. Put something on a message on your computer that you are in retreat until midday of December 8th, and we'll be not getting back till then. Actually, it's one of the most wonderful things to give yourself that excuse where you get the blessing of dropping in that way. And just as Enkyo Roshi suggested of setting up this corner, her altar, create a place, where that is your space for your practice. I'm in my little living room upstairs, and it's set up as a little studio, but it's very, very simple. And in the altar, you could have the elements reflected of earth, water, fire, air, and space. It's beautiful to kind of, don't overdo it, but to create a place where you can offer incense if you want to, or light the candle if you wish. And I just really say fast from your habits, but do enjoy simple food in these days together. At Upaya, we have our orioki meal, and for breakfast and lunch, and at night it's the medicine bowl. I just encourage you, please, really simplify your diet. Don't get exotica with the food situation. Just see if you can simplify everything in your life for this period of deep regeneration. And I have long looked at Rohatsu as a rite of passage, as a ceremony. And the word ceremony actually comes from the same root as the word cure. So maybe this is a kind of time where we can be cured from the ego habit to a certain extent. Finally, just a few more things, and then I'll conclude with some words about words of the Sutra, this wonderful wild text, the San Sui Kyo. But I ask you to please, whether you're on site or online, show up for on site 5 minutes before the period. Don't just, like some people just throw on their stuff and are running into the Zendo. See if you can really permeate your life during this period with a quality of openness, of confidence, and of ease, and also the sense of responsibility. And then I'd like to speak briefly about Dokusan and interviews. We're so fortunate that Sensei Shinzan, Monshin, Annette Overly, Fushin James Bristol, Kozan Pileski, and I think Noah are all available for interviews. And that is happening through Calendly. For my own situation, we're going to have a little bit different organization. And actually, I'm slightly daunted. There seems like more than 60 people have signed up already. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to spend a little time in Zendo just sitting. But the protocol will be pretty much like we do when we're in the Zendo. I will actually call you out of Zazen. Everybody will hear. I'll say very quietly, Valentina, please meet me in Zazen. I'm going to ask you then to go to the chat, and you will get a link. And you'll press on that link, and the Zoom channel switch and bring the two of us together. And this is an experiment, and Noah's going to give me some coaching, tech coaching tomorrow morning to be sure this works well. But let's give it a try. A couple of times what has happened on Calendly, and I ask you for, on the sake of our wonderful senior practitioners who are offering interviews, show up, please. I was stood up quite a few times. I don't know, people just backed out, and it was like, I'm sitting in the Zoom room waiting for people, and I just, they never showed up. And so I chose to do it this way, also knowing that in the beginning, probably I will call on my senior students first. So be patient. And I hope to get to everybody, but also you can sign up for another interview with one of our senior practitioners. I think that's a fair thing to suggest to you. Because as I said, I'm a little overwhelmed by the number of interviews I'll be doing. And I want to just, I want to meet everybody's expectations. And finally, in terms of all of the interviews, whether mine or whether with our seniors, these interviews are not visiting periods. They're not therapy sessions. They are an opportunity for us to explore with you your practice. So probably the first question that you'll receive from most everybody is, tell me about your practice, or what practice are you doing? And I ask that you really respect the spirit of the interviews in Dokusan by keeping the encounter direct, concise, and on point, if that's okay. And then, as Noah mentioned, this is by Donna, and I just encourage you by donation. This has been the craziest 21 months I, as a nearly 80-year-old person, I've ever been through. And we've just done this huge shift at Upaya, and your generosity to us makes it possible for us to support our teachers and also what we're doing here. So feel free, please, to give generously. So finishing up, I want to just read the first two verses of the Sansui Kyo. Mountains and waters right now are the actualization of the ancient Buddha way, each abiding in its phenomenal expression realizes completeness. Because mountains and waters have been active since before the empty aeon, they are alive at this moment. Because they have been the self since before form arose, they are emancipation, realization. Because mountains are high and broad, the way of riding the clouds is always reached in the mountains. The inconceivable power of soaring in the wind comes freely from the mountains. So may we soar in the wind in these next days of deep practice. And I thank you so much, Roshi Enkyo, for being by my side as we drop into this beautiful mandala of practice. And I thank all of you who are here at Upaya, the few who were able to quarantine, and the hundreds of you online who will be on this journey together over these next 8 days. So thank you for your practice.